Live from Los Angeles. It's time to get inside. The Gamer's Dome with your host, Scott Gerhardt. Bringing you all of today's gaming news and information all in one place. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Welcome to the Gamer's Dome.
Welcome everyone to a very special edition of the Gamer's Dome. I am your host, Scott Gerhardt, and over this episode, we will be taking a look back at the first part of our podcast series. As you know, we've been doing this for a little while, and we've had quite a few guests on. And I know for most people it might be very difficult to go back and listen to all the old episodes. So what we wanted to do here was go ahead and create something that gives you a chance to see a little bit of the best of the Gamer's Dome to this point. So you kind of have an idea as to what we've done and what we're going to be doing moving forward. So first of all, we start every show with a little bit of news and information from the gaming world. It's just kind of what we do. We want to let everyone know, hey, this is what's going on in video games and card games and board games. And so a lot of that is news, but a lot of opinion is there as well. I like to give my opinion, and we've had a number of guest co-hosts, including Amber Mitchell, Pat Kawula, and Jake Belcher, just to name a few. And we like to give our own little spin on the news. I am not really content to just tell you what the news is. I want to tell you what I think about it, because anyone can just read news. So you want to get a little bit of opinion. So we like to spend the first part of the show go ahead and talking a little bit about that. And since this is the best of, I'm going to go ahead and skip that part, because we try to keep our news fairly fresh and up to date for what's going on, and that doesn't exactly fit the purposes of what we're doing right here. Now, the second thing that we do is we like to bring on a number of guests, and every show we have at least one, sometimes multiple guests from in and around the world of gaming. We've had everyone from professional players to game designers to judges. We've even had professional sports players on. We have had a whole slew of people. So you could imagine we've got a little bit in the way of interviews. So what I want to do at this time is I want to go ahead and play back for you some of the best parts of some of our better interviews to kind of give you an idea as to what we're all about here and what you can expect if you listen moving forward. And for those who are looking to listen moving forward, you can always search us out on The Gamer's Dome on iTunes. You can also go to thegamersdome.com every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We do our show live, and we interact with our fans live on the show. There is a chat feature that you can actually get involved with, and you can chat with us, and we will respond back to you on air. So it's a very interactive show. But enough of that. Let's get to the good stuff. So my first interview was back from early April of this year. We were able to flag down Minnesota Vikings punter Chris Kluwe, who was, I feel, one of the best interviews we've had on this show. For those of you who want to hear the whole thing back, it is from episode 13. So here we are with Chris Kluwe. So I said with the Twitter handle at Chris Warcraft, we know you've spent a bit of time in the world of Warcraft. But what other games do you enjoy playing, like both video games and other?
Pretty much every video game genre except for sports games. I'm terrible at sports games.
That's ironic.
Yeah, slightly ironic. And then I love tabletop gaming, Warhammer, War Machine, big fans of those. Play collectible card games, Magic the Gathering, a game called Netrunner. Pretty much board games like Risk Legacy, Standard Risk. Pretty much anything that's nerdy, I will probably play it.
Okay, so I have a question that's kind of close to my heart, but will you ever give SimCity another chance?
If they take away the always-on requirement.
I know, the DRM's killing me, but
yeah.
I mean, I can't stop playing it. I'm on so many different regions. I have probably like 20 cities, to be honest. But Is it really like, is that the line in the sand that you've drawn for SimCity?
Yeah, and I mean, it really is kind of the line in the sand I've drawn for EA in general. There's, I saw the report from, I think it was like the Consumer Magazine or something today, where, they were voted the most hated company in the world for the second year in a row.
Yeah, we just covered that on the first segment.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's because they really don't care about the consumer. They're in it to maximize their profit however they can, and it's leading to so many games that are broken that should be good games and should not be broken.
I feel I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. I'm so sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead.
I feel like Origin was just a bad idea in general.
Yeah, it's really they saw the success of Steam and they're like, hey, we're going to make our own thing and force people to use it, but they don't have a working system, whereas Steam actually works. It's like, if you're going to make a competitor to Steam, then you might want to make sure that it actually functions.
Yeah. I still have trouble going back to like my Sims. What is it? Sims 2. I'm not even Sims 3. Just trying to play Sims 2, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to deal with Origin.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that upsets me is the fact that the idea of always on DRM really means that you don't own the game. It means that the company owns the game, and if they ever decide to shut the servers down, then you're not going to be able to play it anymore. And that's not what I'm looking at when I buy a product. Like, if I buy something, I want to own it.
Yeah, I mean, in the age of digital downloads, I can understand like people wanting to have more control, but in the end, you're buying a product, and you should have constant access to it. And yeah, I agree with you on that, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate that the only way that they'll ever change those business practices is if enough people say, you know what, it's just not worth it to me anymore. I'm not going to buy your products until you change, because sadly, the only thing they understand is money.
Yeah, well, so within that same thought stream here, we've got the Xbox 720 and the PS4 coming out, talking about needing an always-on internet connection and stuff like. Are you at the point where you're like, if that's the way it is, I'm just not going to buy those systems?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but like, I mean, you look at the launch of the of Defiance, this last week. It's supposed to be this great online experience that ties in with the TV show, and their servers don't work. And I mean, that's a constant problem that's plagued basically every single online game that's ever been made. And for a console, I don't want to have to deal with, if your stuff doesn't work, then I can't play my games. That's not entertainment to me. That's not worth buying your product.
Exactly. I used to actually do testing for Midway Games, and I was always frustrated when we would put out a product out there that was, you could tell it wasn't ready, and they would just push it because of the franchise name, And
right,
so
exactly.
I can't stand that.
Like it's annoying, and it's frustrating as a gamer to have to deal with that, because it should be a better game, and they're just they're trying to squeeze your wallet tighter.
Yeah.
So let's jump off of gaming for just a little bit here. So I've got to ask, because I think I've read this story a little bit. Actually, maybe we're not going completely off gaming here. How did you get into the idea of making music and being part of Tripping Icarus?
that definitely is still on the gaming subject, because I started playing Guitar Hero when it first came out, the very first Guitar Hero, and I got really good at it, and played the second and third ones and pretty much mastered them, and I unlocked an achievement that said buy a real guitar already, and so I figured, well, I should probably buy a real guitar now.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, but this is amazing. I've never actually heard of someone who started a band after playing Guitar Hero. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's well, and I had a musical background. I played violin growing up, so it wasn't just like I was starting from scratch. I kind of right, exactly. I knew kind of basic music theory and what notes are right, what notes are wrong. And so one of my buddies had mentioned he'd been in a band before, and I was like, well, if you can put up with me kind of learning on the job, then I'd love to try and be in a band, because playing Guitar Hero is a lot of fun, and I can only imagine playing the real thing is probably just as much, if not more fun.
Yeah, that's I read that story. I'm like, really? That happened? That's awesome.
Yeah, yep, yeah. Well, and hopefully, more people start doing that, and don't view video games just as the only thing they're able to do, but look at a video game and be like, hey, maybe I can, maybe I can do something like that in real life. Now, obviously, that applies mainly to like music and sports games, preferably not first-person shooters. That's not a good idea.
No. And that was just a piece of that interview with Chris Kluwe. So, our next guest was from February. He is the producer for the Geek and Sundry show Tabletop, and for those in the gaming industry, he is extremely well known and has been described to me by one person as the Google of games. From episode 7, we have a Boyan Radakovich next.
First of all, just for some of the listeners who may not actually know who you are,
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about your background in gaming, everything, and what led you to where you are now.
Okay. So first off, my name, if you're just tuning in, my name is Boyan Radakovich, but a lot of you guys know me as Bo. And I'm an associate producer on a show you might have heard of called Tabletop. And it's featured on Felicia Day's premium YouTube channel called Geek and Sundry. And essentially, Will Wheaton is our host, and Will asks, his friends to come on over and essentially play games. And we hang out and we play board games, and it's great. And the show's been doing really well. And so that's the overall pitch. How I got involved, basically last year, Google went to the creative community and they said, we're trying to do this new initiative for the premium YouTube channels. And they approached Felicia. And Felicia said, I would love to do something for you guys. And because... Is that a dog in here?
We apparently have a dog in the hall.
Sounds like someone just walked a dog into the office. I'm going to go chew him out.
Werewolf over here. So Google approached Felicia. Felicia's like, yeah, let's do this thing. And she called her friends up. And she called Will and said, Will, if you had your own show, what would it be on this, because I have a channel, I need to fill it with programming, what would you do? And he said, I would play games with my friends. And they're like, okay, let's do this. And Will called me up because I am a game designer and a publisher, and I've produced games. I've done pretty much everything in the industry except for run a store. So I'm a convention promoter. I used to be the marketing director for a distributor, published, design, help, consult. I do pretty much whatever.
Yeah.
I'm super passionate about tabletop gaming, and Will and I have been friends for a long time. And he said, is this something that we can do? And I was like, hell yeah, we're going to make this thing awesome. And that was how we started last year. It was a bit of an experiment, but I think you'll see that it's been really quite successful. And it's not because of the games. You'll notice this. There's a lot of copycat shows out there now. NBC is doing one. There's several smaller shows out there that are essentially doing hey, let's all hang out and play games. But really, the reason tabletop is successful is because of the community, right? It's about us. It's about the gamers and treating it with respect and, just basically saying this is a normal activity, so come on over and let's have some fun.
I think it's cool that there's someone out there that is kind of normalizing this, because there is kind of a nerdiness to it that existed in the past that is just disappearing.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this earlier. I think we're a part of that, right? We're part of normalizing. And if we had done the show maybe 3-4 years ago, it probably would still not have been the right milieu in which to work. But I think now it's on the rise, and we hit it. I think we did it well. The show is well produced. We have a team of probably 30 people working on it, and we're all super passionate and really dedicated to the show. I mean, we just pour everything into it, and you can see it, and it's genuine. It's actually Will playing games that he actually likes. Yeah. And we're all really excited about it, and we just want to be there and, help promote this as a fun way and to just have, it's a good activity, man. Come on over, hang out, let's have some beers, let's play some board games.
It helps a lot when you're not being told, hey, listen, you need to play this game and you need to enjoy it and stuff. And it's actually things he already knows how to play, and he plays them and he enjoys them. and the people come in and they enjoy it. And it's the passion kind of shows on camera. I've noticed watching the games, it doesn't feel contrived at all. It's really
that's the secret,
very genuine.
Yeah, the secret is it's the chemistry between the players.
Yeah.
You watch because you want to know what's going on and you want to hear the funny stories. It's like you're that fifth player at game night, and it's a little bit different because you're watching on YouTube, or maybe if you watch it on, because we shoot in HD, you can watch it at home on like the big TV or whatever. But it's just like any other game day. It's like the same kind of jokes, and it's really affected the community. It's something that they're extremely positive about, and they love sharing, and it's amazing.
And that was Boyan Radakovich from episode 7. Feel free to go back and check out that whole episode. Our next guest actually is from our most recent show, episode 15. He is the CEO of Stoneblade Entertainment, the company that makes Ascension and Soulforge, a former Magic the Gathering professional player. Justin Gary. This is definitely one of those episodes that you don't want to miss. So, at this time, my guest is a former Magic the Gathering Pro Tour, National, and Team Worlds champion. His company, Stoneblade Entertainment, has turned the gaming world on its head in 2010 when Ascension was introduced. With Ascension being as wildly popular as ever, they're now working on a brand new game, Soulforge. Please welcome Justin Gary to the show. Hey, Justin, how's it going?
Hi, Scott. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. Okay, so first things first here. I've got to ask you, how did you get... I mean, you were a very successful professional player, and you've now gotten into the idea of creating games. How did you get into that?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I started off in playing Magic and playing professionally for a while because I kind of enjoyed it and was good at it, and then I decided to get serious and go try to get a real job, and so I went to law school. And I was miserable. And so the summer after my first year of law school, I got offered an internship to do game design at Upper Deck, which was doing the Versus System trading card game at the time. And so I went out there and worked on it for a couple of months, and they liked me, and I liked that a lot more than I liked trying to be a lawyer. So they offered me a full-time job, and I went out and never looked back. And after spending time working on Versus System, the World of Warcraft trading card game, designing the World of Warcraft miniatures game, I'd kind of gone through the process enough and felt like I knew enough to start my own company and take some of the best people from there with me, and now here we are.
Yeah, well, it's incredible, and I remember when I first heard about Ascension, I just thought, oh, okay, this is just another game that's out, and then I heard some of the names that were behind the game, and then I sat down and played the game. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not just another game. So let's start with Ascension here. For those out there, maybe both of you that have never played, could you tell us a little bit about the game?
Sure. Ascension is a deck building game, and it's inspired primarily by both Magic and a game called Dominion, which was the first deck building game. And the idea is that you basically... Everybody, one of the fun things about collectible games, for those of you that play Magic or any of the other, TCGs out there, is, building a deck and getting that experience. Unfortunately, it costs you a ton of money to do it. And so a deck building game says, look, I'm going to buy one box. So for $40, you can have the base game, or for $5, you can have the app on iPhone and iPad. And eventually we're going to have it for free on Ascension Online on PC and Android. And everybody starts with the same deck of cards, which are very basic. And then there's cards that are laid out in the center of the board that you can then buy and acquire to build your deck as the game goes on. And then that makes your deck more powerful, and you can then do more cool things and get better cards and so on until somebody at the end of the game wins. So you kind of get that revolutionary deck building experience every time. And what makes Ascension different is there's, first of all, a fantasy theme to it, so you can kill monsters and have heroes and weapons and all kinds of stuff like that. And second of all, there's the center row of cards that are available changes every time. So every time you pick a card, a new card comes up to replace it. And to a certain extent, it mirrors the drafting mechanic in Magic. So the idea that you can open up a pack of cards, and the cards you take influence what everybody else does. So it's meant to be super fast to play and easy to pick up. You can play a game in under half an hour. If you're playing on the phone, it's actually 5 minutes to play a game. It's very easy to teach non-gamers. We have a lot of success with people who are gamers, like who brought in their girlfriends or other non-gamer friends in and learned how to play that way. But it has that kind of depth of strategy that keeps people like us interested. I mean, you mentioned some of the names that are on this project, not just myself, but Brian Kibler and Rob Doherty are both Magic Hall of Famers. Darwin Castle helped work on the game. John Fiorillo, Patrick Sullivan's on the team now. All really big, very successful Magic players and people who are looking for depth in the game. We just brought Mark Herbeholtz on as another Pro Tour champion. So if you count the number of Pro Tour wins amongst our team, it's unparalleled, probably anywhere in the world. So we try to get that depth of strategy with the simplicity of picking it up, and that's kind of the not so short version of Ascension.
Okay.
Now I'm very much not. I haven't tabletopped in a long time, so these kind of deck building games kind of throw me out. Now, what I'm seeing is, do you draft at the beginning of the game, and then it's just one deck you're playing off of, or are you playing? Do you each have a center deck, or how is that exactly?
So it's all shared in the center. So everybody starts with a deck of 10 cards that are the exact same cards, and then and those cards provide you with resources, and they either give you runes or power. And if you think about runes, like they're sort of like money that you use to buy new cards. And so you'll decide from the cards that are in the center that are like a shared center. So sort of like, so there'll be 6 cards that we all have access to. And I pick the one I want. If I have enough resources to get it, I acquire it, goes to my deck. And then the next person, and it'll get replaced, and then the next person does the same thing. And the way it works is every turn you draw 5 cards off your deck, play whatever you can, and then whenever you run out of cards in your deck, you reshuffle. So all the cards you're buying keep getting cycled through, so your deck keeps getting better and better and better. So it's not like you draft and then play the game. It's the drafting is the game. You're playing it as you go. So every card you get helps you get more resources to be able to get more better cards. And so that's kind of the core innovation of it. It's not like, even in Magic where you're like, okay, I'm going to build my deck, whether that's sealed deck, draft, constructed, whatever, and then I'm going to play. Here, the building the deck and playing are sort of intermingled in a way that really makes it a pretty fun experience. It's a great, we've had huge success with this game more than any other game I've worked on, both with getting Magic players to come over because it's a great game to play, while you're waiting for different rounds in a tournament, or just to kind of have available when anyone can kind of sit down. And it's easier to learn and access than a lot of other games in our category. So you can get the non-gamers to come in and try it out and kind of get introduced to the idea of a hobby game.
And that was Justin Gary again from episode 15. Make sure you check out that full interview. It was a pretty good one. So next, if we go back to episode 8, we have Sheldon Menery, who is a judge emeritus for Magic the Gathering. He was the godfather of the EDH, now Commander format. It was another one of those great interviews that you should definitely check out. So again, from episode 8, we have Sheldon Menery.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start here with EDH. So for those listeners out there who actually don't know what EDH, could you tell them a little bit?
Sure. EDH, or now officially called Commander, is a Magic format that's a multiplayer format with a few extra rules. You have to choose a commander, and that has to be a legendary creature, and the colors in your deck can only be the colors in your commander. So if your general is Feldegriff, which is the Bant colors, all you can have in your deck are cards that are blue, green, and or white. And no mana symbols can appear anywhere on any of the cards in your deck that aren't in your colors. For example, you couldn't play Altar of Shadows in your Feldegriff deck. The second rule is the commander starts the game in the command zone, and you can cast him from there. If he would go to the graveyard or be exiled, you put him back in the command zone, and you can cast him again, only each additional time that you cast him from the command zone, you have to pay 2 more mana. So the first time I play Feldegriff, he costs 4. The second time he costs 6, 8, and so on. Your life total also starts at 40 instead of 20, and if you take 21 damage from a single commander, you lose regardless of your life total. Other than that, that's those are basically the rules. It's a multiplayer format. It's designed to be very social. It's more about watching big, epic, swingy things happen than necessarily comboing out on turn 2 or turn 3.
So why do you think Commander's actually caught on as well as it has? I mean, it didn't start as a supported format at all, and now has gotten quite the following.
I think that it got a groundswell of support as I brought it to the Pro Tour judge community, and Pro Tour the Pro Tour judges or judges in general are great evangels for things that they believe in, and they had so much fun playing the format that they spread it out. But I have to tell you that Commander is a format that sells itself. You don't have to really tell anybody too much about it. You just have to let them watch a game or two, and they're going to be hooked. I think the big draws of the format, again, are words like epic and swingy. Avengers Zendikar is a card. Stormherd is a card. For a long time, we called it the dollar rare format. But just big, crazy things with basically a vintage legal card pool with a ban list, power, and things like that are on the ban list. The ban list is almost the identical size that the modern ban list is, now that I think of it. So just these wild, crazy things that you never get to see in other games of Magic happen in EDH games, and I think that's why the player base and more people every day love it.
Why did you end up deciding to go the judge route so heavily? And, what was it that actually drew you to it?
Well, I certified. The simple answer to your question is, and I know it's going to sound a little old-fashioned, but I believe in personal responsibility and I believe in community responsibility. And it's why I served 20 years in the military, because there are things in our communities that need to be done. And I certified as a judge in 1996. And back then, there weren't a lot. There were at GP Charlotte there was a judge conference, and I think there were like 200 judges there. Back in the day, when I did my first Pro Tour, I don't think there were 200 judges in the whole program. Judging was something that needed to be done. Running tournaments when Magic was small became a thing, and somebody needed to do it. You can't have a tournament without somebody to run it. And, I saw that need and I decided to step in and fill it. And then, things happened relatively quickly because we were kind of making it up as we went along back then. Again, the program was small. There weren't a great number of mentors or leaders to show us how things were done. So in the earliest days of the Pro Tour, and certainly as I got involved, we were creating something new, and that became very, very exciting to me.
And that was Sheldon Menery again from episode 8. So as we move on to our next guest, we have Jason Klaczynski, who was a 2-time Pokemon TCG World Champion. And he talks to us a little bit about how he got his start and his travel schedule. This is back from episode 3, so go ahead and check this one out. How did you actually get your start in Pokemon, specifically like the card game?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people will remember back around 1998, 1999 when the big Pokemon boom came out with the red and blue video games, and everybody was carrying around their Pokemon cards in their binders. Very few people actually knew how to play. I was one of those people myself carrying the cards around, but some friends and I actually took the time to read the rule book and learn how to play. And after doing so, we found out that, wow, this is actually a really fun game. So we played more and more, and we tweaked our decks around, and we just stuck with it and had so much fun. And I seemed to catch on a little bit faster than my friends. And that next summer, I finally saw a flyer for a Pokemon card tournament, and I was so excited to actually go try a tournament out, and was lucky enough to win my first tournament, and after that I was kind of just hooked.
Yeah, I understand, having been there myself a long time ago. But the game has evolved so much, and you have been, one of the, again, if not the most recognizable name for nearly the last 12 years. What do you attribute your continued success to in the game?
I think I've just, some people, everyone's naturally good at certain things. I think cards are just something I excel at from an early age, and I have the advantage of experience, I suppose. I've played since the very beginning, so as Pokemon picks up new players every year, and we've been picking up a lot of new ones recently because Pokemon TCG Online finally made its debut. I have a lot of the experience from the beginning, and a lot of the strategies and tactics, and not just in playing the game, but in building decks too, carries over all the way from the days of, base set in 1999. Those same strategies and ideas and concepts are applicable to today's game just as much as they were back in 1999, 2000, etc.
Fair enough. So, you and we've been friends on Facebook for a while, and I see all the time that you're posting about doing this tournament and that tournament. How much time do you actually typically spend playing the game, both in playtesting and tournaments?
I'm kind of on and off, but the one thing I'm consistent about is right before the big tournaments every year, which are the National Championship and the World Championship. Those are both held in the summer. That's when I really start to pick it up. The friends come over and we make all the decks and we try all the matchups out and we tweak the list to try to make them beat the popular decks and play the same matchups over and over. That's when we get pretty serious about it. During the early parts of the season, I'm not always too consistent. If you win a world championship, the next year you're automatically qualified for the subsequent world championship. So take 2006, for example. I won my first world championship then, and then knowing I was qualified for 2007's championship, I got a little bit lazy, didn't play as much that year. And, same thing in 2008 when I won my second title. I was a little lazier in 2009, but, this year I'm still working on my invitation. The way it works is you need to qualify with 400 championship points, they're called, and you earn those by doing well at tournaments. I'm up to 317 right now, so I've been working, testing a lot, I'd say, this year, and I'm confident that I'm going to end up with 400 before Worlds, hopefully.
Oh, that's great. Well, talk about your travel schedule for the game. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm seeing you in all sorts of places. Like, how much traveling do you actually do in playing this game?
Well, what's great about Pokemon is just the community is so friendly, and you meet people from not just all over the country, but all over the world when you attend the National World Championships. And I've had the privilege of meeting people from, the West Coast, the East Coast, the Northeast. I also lived in Florida for a little while. I'm from Chicago, but spent a few years in Florida. So I just ended up with friends pretty much everywhere. So some friends tell me, last week, come over to Virginia's regional championship. And, I like Washington, D.C. is probably my favorite city. So I went over there. I have friends that invite me to stay at their place. And then on the way back to Chicago and Ohio, I have more friends and relatives that I could stop and hang out with them. So pretty much wherever I drive in the country, I have Pokemon friends. They're almost like your second family. It's just such a tight-knit community, and everyone's so friendly. It's really what keeps me and so many others in the game.
And that was Jason from episode 3. Feel free to go back and check out that entire episode. Next, we caught up with Melissa DeTora at Grand Prix San Diego this last March. Melissa had just recently become the first female to ever top 8 a Pro Tour, and we got her thoughts on being able to do that.
So I was able to win the next 3 after that pretty easily.
You get into day 2, and obviously have a good enough run to make it into the top 8. So between the last round and you actually figure out, okay, I'm in top 8 now, kind of what are you thinking there? Obviously it's got to not be lost on you that you've just made Pro Tour history at that point.
Yeah, after round 15, I still didn't believe I was in top 8 because, I always end up finishing 9th and stuff. And everyone was like, oh, you made top 8, congrats. But I still didn't believe it. And everyone brought up the standings. They're like, oh, look, you get to draw with Tom. You're definitely guaranteed playing him. And I was like, wow, is this really happening? And, I was just amazed, and I was really proud of myself. And I honestly didn't think that I would do it because I've just done badly at every other Pro Tour I played in pretty much. So it was, pretty much the best feeling ever.
So what does it actually mean to you to A, just top 8 a Pro Tour period, and then B, to be the first female to actually do that?
Well, my goal for the Pro Tour was to get gold. So, I didn't really have any expectations of top 8 or anything. So after I top 8, I was like, oh wow, so I totally exceeded my goal and made gold and everything. And like the female thing, I mean, it's cool and everything. I don't really care about the gender thing that much, but it is history and it is really good for the game. So that's good. I'm glad it was me.
So there's obviously, I mean, there's a lot of girls out there who play and are legitimately good Magic players, and it can be a real rough, like, chauvinistic environment. A lot of these guys can be jerks. Would you have any advice for women who are trying to actually get more into competitive Magic?
Pretty much just find a group that are not only good players but also nice, and stick with them, and like as long as they're there for you and support you, like whatever crap you get from everyone out there, like it won't matter, and you'll just eventually become a better player because of your play group.
And that was Melissa Detora from episode 11, if you want to go back and check out that entire interview. So our final interview on this best of is going to be from episode 6. We had a Magic historian and a guy who's been through the game since the beginning, Jack Stanton, on. And we talked to him a little bit about what it was like to work for Wizards of the Coast back in the original days. So, my guest at this time has a resume which is way longer than I could possibly talk about. He's a former writer for Sideboard, The Dojo, and a bunch of other Magic publications. He's most notable for actually creating the coverage outline for Wizards' online coverage for Pro Tour events. He's an old-school tournament player. He's got a Pro Tour top 8. He's been a game store owner. I could go on and on. My guest at this time is Jack Stanton. Jack, how are you doing? I'm sorry, Jack?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, going great.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the Gamers Dome here. So I want to go ahead and start, and I've got to ask you, because I know that you used to actually work for Wizards doing a lot of their coverage. The first question I've got to ask you is, what was it actually like to work for Wizards of the Coast?
You know, it really differed depending on the editors that I had to deal with. The first guy I dealt with was a guy named Terry Melia, who gave me my start. He eventually went on to Upper Deck. The guy used to cover the Seattle Mariners, was big in the Sports Collectors Digest. We hit it off because we both had a lot of baseball. We really liked baseball and sports memorabilia, and so yeah, he got me started. There was a guy named Jeff Lind who played in the band Harvey Danger, and when they hit big, I took his place at Pro Tour Atlanta in 1996 and just pretty much ran with it for about 3 years after that. But it's interesting sometimes.
Oh, no, I can certainly understand. Okay, so tell us, I want to go ahead and mention real quick here that you are the head of Stone Town Publishing. Tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you guys are doing.
Well, basically, there aren't that many strategy books on Magic the Gathering. You have a great book by Pat Chapin at Star City Games called Next Level Magic, probably the best strategy guide ever written. You have Amazon, you have Quest for the Pro Tour and Secret Force by Jamie Wakefield. But after that, you really don't have that many Magic books, and considering it's been 20 years. I mean, you had George Baxter back in 1994-95-ish, and there was a book I co-authored with 8 other guys by Brady Publishing back in 1996, but seriously, there just hasn't been anything such as chess books. You know, there's so many different chess books out there. There's modern chess openings, basic chess endings, God only knows how many middle game strategy books. But what we tried to do is get a group of players together, the top players in the world. And for the first book, I was able to get Brian Kibler, Paulo Vitor de Rosa, Luis Scott Vargas, and Craig Wesco. And these guys are some of the best players in the world. 3 of them are considered the best players over the last 7 years of Magic. And what we did was we did a book called 10 Packs, a Return to Ravnica draft strategy book available on Amazon. And what we did was take each player went over 10 packs. And it was as though they were looking at the packs for the first time in a draft. And they'd basically go through, figure out the best picks, check out and give the strategy involved on the other cards in the pack, how they might see their neighbors drafting them, and what they had hoped to see on the turn. And this is something we're going to be doing with Gate Crash. Right now I got Melissa DeToro and Louis Scott Vargas are 2 of the writers that are confirmed right now. But we're actually coming up with something called The Art of Draft Gate Crash, where we go over 2 complete drafts. There's going to be 4 writers in each draft, and you're going to follow their entire drafts and all the thoughts going through their heads as to what they're picking and why. If they have to get forced out of colors, they will explain why. They'll explain what they think that their neighbors are going, but at the same time, you'll get to see what their neighbors are picking. So I'm really looking forward to that as a player, but also as a fan of these guys. Right now, we're looking at Louis Scott Vargas from Channel Fireball, Sam Black from Star City Games, and Jackie Lee and possibly Raphael Levy from TCGplayer.com, which is one hell of a lineup because you're dealing with, 1 Hall of Famer, 2 potential Hall of Famers, and who knows where Jackie's career is going to go to, but it's getting up there.
And that was Jack Stanton from Episode 6. Well, thank you for checking out the Gamers Dome and taking a look back at our first episodes. Hopefully you liked what you heard and you'll tune in to us each week. We broadcast live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific at thegamersdome.com. And we can also be found on iTunes and other major podcast locations. I want to take a moment to thank all of my friends behind the scenes and really everyone who's helped us be the success that we've been so far. Thank you for getting caught up with us, and until next time, keep playing.